Today we're talking drag racing, what you can do to your front end to get faster at the drag strip. Hey guys, I'm Adam, this is Steve. Today we're talking about drag racing, kind of what you can do to your car to help go a little faster at the drag strip. So Steve, setting up a front end, where do we want to start?
Yeah, so it's important to set up the front end because we're trying to get the front end to come up so we can transfer the weight to the rear tires, hopefully plant them, to the track well. And in order to get the front end coming up, there are a couple different components that we use to do that. And the first one is going to be the shocks. We really want control over the shocks. A double adjustable shock is going to give you the ability to soften that rebound or the upward motion of the car, but then firm the compression so that after the car is up, it's not slamming back down, damaging oil pans. We want it to kind of actually hold it up and then level out down track for the best weight transfer.
This is set up as a pretty serious drag car. This has got our mod series shocks on it.
Yeah.
But doubles are really about where you want to start, right?
Yeah, double adjustable, when it gets real serious, the mod series shock, but both of those shocks are going to give you good control both up and down and control this front end.
So what about, obviously we've got a spring on here. I know normally on a G-body we'd run maybe a 400-pound spring. What are we going to do for a drag car?
On this car we're running a 300, and in most drag applications we're going to be running a slightly softer spring rate. The reason for that is we have the weight of the car compressing that softer spring that's giving us the stored energy in the front end. So now, instead of a firmer spring that isn't going to have as much stored energy to get that front end popping up, that softer spring is going to help us get the front end coming up. We have the rebound on the shock set soft, so that's going to introduce or give it the ability to come up quicker, and that's how we control that front end rise.
For a drag car, we've got our drag series control arms on here. I see a big bolt in there that acts as a droop stop. What do you want to do with that, or how do you want to kind of play with travel in the front end to get it what you want to do?
Yeah, the QA1 drag control arms, they have a composite bushing in the pivot points, so they're a real free moving arm, which also helps with getting the front end coming up. And then we also have in the upper control arm an adjustable droop stop. So this will control how much the front end droops down or front end rise. You can limit that if you need to, but also it'll help if your shock happens to be wanting to go to full extension, which in most front ends, the full droop stop is either on the control arm or the shock itself. So you can limit the amount of droop that the suspension sees. And if you're trying to tie the car down on some real fast cars, they actually don't need a whole lot of rise. They're chassis cars, they're built to go in a straight line. You won't need as much front end rise and weight transfer as like a bracket car. And so the droop stop is another one of those items that will help you limit that amount of travel if needed.
And why would you want to limit travel? Is that for wheelies? Is that to help transfer weight? What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, we've got the front end coming up. Obviously, up is not where we're trying to get this car to go. We're trying to get it to go straight, but we're using the upward motion of the front end to help the velocity or the transfer of the weight to the back. And some cars just don't need a lot of that. Mostly when you get into like the 9-8 second cars, faster than that, those are going to be mostly chassis cars. They're built to go straight, so you don't have to introduce a lot of rise in the front. Another nice thing that keeps everything moving freely in this upper control arm and the lower control arm is the QA1 low friction ball joint.
So I know normally on a handling car or even a street car, we'd want to see a big sway bar under there, really limit that body roll. What are we going to do with a drag car?
Yeah, on a drag car, that sway bar is only going to help to hold the front end together, which we want it loose so we can get that upward rise real quick. So on a drag car, you won't typically see a front sway bar. Now, some of our street customers who do happen to run a sway bar normally, when they go to the track, sometimes they'll undo the end links, leave the bar in there, and then they're getting that function of not having a sway bar.
Sure. So we've talked about shocks, springs, control arms, sway bars. How does all of that just kind of work together to make you faster?
It is all a system. So you can imagine if we had a softer spring rate with stored energy, thinking we're going to get this front end to come up, but we have, say, a auto parts shock in there with a gas charge in it that just doesn't want to extend that quick, that's going to be something that hinders what we're trying to do with the front end. But on this car, we've got all of the components to do what we need to do, and a limiter in case we need to calm it down with the shock or with the droop stop. But in terms of getting a front end coming up and transferring that weight, we've got the easy moving control arms with those composite bushings. We've got the softer spring rate. We've got the rebound setting on the shock letting us go up. No sway bar. So we've got everything here to do what we're trying to do at the drag strip.
I mean, obviously, guys, you don't have to have all of this to go take your car for a run. Just go have some fun. But if you're, like Steve says, if you're trying to get more competitive, these are some of the items you're going to look at. So if you're looking for more of a weekend warrior setup and don't want to go quite as extreme as this, you could still go with the double adjustable front shocks. And then instead, we said this is a 400-pound spring normally in a G-body. Maybe you go a 350, not all the way down to a 300. Still gives you a nice ride on the street, but gives you a little bit of an edge at the drag strip. If you have questions about your car, call our tech line anytime. Talk to guys like Steve. Check out our tech articles at QA1.net. More YouTube videos, but just get out and go drive it.